All right, hi everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to be presenting on our Praxis project that we worked on this quarter. And our project was actually presented to Dr. Garcia from Red Rocks Community College, and it deals with really adult mentoring and adult learning within the prison system. It was really interesting, and what they really wanted help with was just getting a lit review put together to really back up their program. They're going to be enacting it sometime here soon. So they really wanted the data and the background to back up their program and really push and move it forward. So that's kind of what we've been working on the past couple of weeks. So we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Monsi Vasquez. I don't know if anyone else wants to go in and introduce themselves, but that's what we're going to be presenting on.
Hi, I'm Sekia Lore.
Hi, I'm Anahita Payfoon.
Hi, I'm Justin Diaz.
And I'm Emma Rao.
Cool. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, awesome. So the two main purposes of this program is going to be to train qualified inmates in the state of Colorado that have obtained a college or post-secondary degree to teach offenders the critical skills necessary to achieve a GED. So this program is going to utilize the course EDU 2601, which is adult learning and teaching, to achieve that purpose. After completion of the 2601 course, individuals are going to be able to acquire the skills to prepare others for their high school equivalency. And then the second part of this program is going to aim to provide 12 instruction hours that qualify for the Colorado's Adult Basic Education Authorization. And then we can go into the next slide because that'll talk a little bit more about it in objectives. But the ABEA is a credential that is issued by the Office of Educator Preparation, Licensing, and Enforcement within the Colorado Department of Education, so the CDE. This credential is meant for educators that are working with adult learners to ensure that they have been well trained under the context provided by the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. So this is basically a way to standardize adult education. Their aim is to standardize the basic knowledge and skills individuals need to teach in adult basic education programs in Colorado, to recognize and validate the expertise and knowledge of experienced adult educators, and requiring participation in professional learning activities to maintain and update knowledge and skills. Go to the next slide. So in 1994, there was a decrease in funding due to the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. So this led to most college in-person programs to pull out of prison. This basically meant that Pell Grants could no longer be used as a source of funding, which is just a constant theme in the society that we live in. We continue to defund, resources and access for our incarcerated people. And it's a good example of the priorities that the United States government has. Currently in the state of Colorado, there's over 12,000 people imprisoned in our system. So that's over 12,000 people that lack the resources and access to education. Prisons are really meant to be a way to rehabilitate citizens and have them rejoin society as better members. But unfortunately in the US, that hasn't been the case. We are facing mass incarceration and we're failing our marginalized communities. Some even go as far as comparing the system to a new form of Jim Crow laws. People from marginalized communities are disproportionately impacted by mass incarceration. Black, Indigenous people of color are just not awarded the same privileges and access to succeed within a system that stems and strives from their oppression. And this really starts at a really young age. We have the school to prison pipeline, where there's just a lack of education access for the population of students that fall victim to the school to prison pipeline. It's a cyclical system that just further enables oppression of our youth from marginalized backgrounds, and a program such as the one recommended in this article can really mitigate systemic barriers and increase access to education for inmates.
Okay, so we'll jump into our literature review and exploring the data that's already been gathered on what problems this kind of program faces, and then also on what's been tried before in the past. But to give a little background on some of the problems that the prison systems are facing right now, as well as Monty mentioned that this program in particular is educating or training qualified inmates to educate other inmates on why introducing them as mentors or instructors might be a helpful solution to some of these problems. And the first one is staff retention, which is a historical problem in the prison system. Everything from recruitment to turnover to selection and retainment all pose barriers to the prison system. They're risky systems that don't necessarily recruit a lot of qualified personnel, and turnover and attrition to other fields is really high. So this leads to two main domino effects, to staff burnout and limited services, as well as dissolving communities and relationships within the prison communities. So the fewer staff that a prison has, the less able they are to offer full services or services in their traditional capacities, since fewer staff are able to take on all the responsibilities. And then those staff that do remain who take on these extra responsibilities experience greater burnout, which leads to more attrition, which feeds into this vicious cycle. And then that second domino effect is the dissolving communities and relationships, especially within prison education systems. So as teachers face larger classes that they need to work with, there's less peer-to-peer accountability in personal situations where personal experiences can be shared in intimate and close relationships, as well as less face-to-face interaction between mentors, instructors, and students. So these two things together kind of lead to unstable education environments, which were exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, which just led to even more limited teaching opportunities and higher risks within the environment, which continue to exacerbate low staff and dissolving communities. And peer mentorship and instruction helps with both of these problems. There is an example from California Men's Colony in 2006 and San Luis Obispo in California, where mentors were introduced, or inmates were introduced as mentors and instructors within a therapy and recovery program, and they ended up being able to increase their post-release or aftercare rates to 81%. So 81% of these people who participated in this program didn't recidivate after they were reintroduced into society. And 81% was much higher than any other place in the state. So this poses an opportunity for the education system to follow along that same trend and introduce inmates as mentors and instructors within the education system.
Okay. To start the literature review in mentoring adult learners, I start my presentation with answering two questions as who are the adult learners and what percentage of the community are they? So according to the Education Advisory Board, adult learners are students 25 and older who cover almost half of the students enrolled in colleges and universities in the United States. One study about undergrad students alone revealed that 38% of 30% are older than 25, and 25% of them have children, and 58% work and study. These adult learners go back to school for different motivational reasons. They may want to impress an authority with their work or make one of their family members proud. They may want to increase their social circles to create better opportunities for themselves for a better job in future, or they may want to get promotions or increase in their salaries, or even they also may simply want to experience a new life challenge to escape from boredom. I'm sorry, let me just next slide. These adult learners are good addition to colleges and classes. Because firstly, they bring maturity, and second, they are an excellent source of experiences. And also they can be a good source of revenue by increasing enrollments and increasing other required necessities that are attached to adult learners' multiple roles, such as like new advisors. Adult learners have different positive characteristics. They are proactive. They are self-directed learners, and they know how to be flexible and balance their life and work, life and schoolwork. They know how to multitask. In other words, they know how to multitask. But regardless of all these positive points, they have a negative side, especially for mentors. They do not get convinced easily, and they can challenge mentors more often. So mentors should choose their mentoring model wisely to be able to make changes for adults. So in this literature review, I covered two types of two different methods. One of them is traditional mentoring, which is the relationship between the older, well-experienced individual or supervisor and less experienced subordinate. The purpose of this type of mentoring is to help the subordinates to develop and get a better job position, for example. The second method is reciprocal or collaborative mentoring. This is a reflective relationship between two or more individuals. These individuals can work together to help each other, or they can work together to help another mentee work towards achievements. Malcolm Nowell revealed 6 core factors for adult learners, and he showed that how adult learners learn better. They need to know what is in the new subject that they want to learn, why they should learn it. They want to see their experiences linked to the new subjects, and they grow better and develop better on self-direction, which it means they need to feel control over the learning process, which online training in blended classes provide them with this opportunity. And they also, let me just say that. They want to see that if this new subject will solve a problem in their lives, and they also learn better when they have intrinsic motivation. So adults' motivations are more internal than external. They are different from children. Let me just go to the next slide. So so adult learners, as I said, their performance increases if the curriculum and the topics are more individuals and linked to their interests. This makes them active adult learers. Active learners keep learning new things even without extrinsic awards. They are creative and remain in the program more, and their turnover is so low. So because of that, active learners are important for colleges. And if the schools has more active learners, it means that it could be an indication that that school has a successful methodology and programs for adult learners. So researchers have found that characteristics of these schools and the characteristics of these schools and categorize these factors into 4. That mentors should set up high but achievable expectations. The curriculum should be designed at appropriate levels of difficulty. And the designated instructional tasks should be of intermediate difficulty so learners can complete them and feel rewarded and remain competent. Mentors also should provide constructive feedback. It helps the learners to develop their weaknesses better. So if a mentor wants to perform higher for adult learners, they have to be able to provide a safe, supportive, and respectful environment to build trust so that learners can open up better without any fears of judgment, because sometimes their past experiences make them reluctant to share their stories with others. And since learners come from different backgrounds and have different experiences, they see new subjects differently. So different learning styles need to be applied to help them transfer. And also the mentors should be able to recognize the barriers of the motivational barriers of adult learners and help them to overcome them. Like if they see that they have financial problems, they can help them with financial aid that government considers for adult learners. Or if they see that they cannot solve any of their problems, they can awake their internal motivation. So according to the scholars and the characteristics of the adult learners in this literature review, the best rewarding method could be the collaborative mentoring method for adult learners.
Cool. And I had this section. So this is mentoring in the prison system. And I'll kind of go quickly over this. But basically, Emma already touched on how over 80% of people released from prison will be rearrested within 9 years. We see that pretty much across all American prison systems. That's not necessarily exclusive to one state or one location. And then as well, incarcerated inmates who participate in educational-based programs are almost 50% less likely to rehabilitate than those who do not. So we can see kind of the benefit of these educational programs and how they're really providing a lot of sense of hope and encouragement to these inmates as they're kind of going through this sentencing in this prison system. Yeah, and so then continuing on with that, we were touching on the Good Lives model, which basically is this modality to look at rehabilitation and restoration within the United States prison system. And so with that, we're looking at how can we best support these inmates as they're adjusting to life in the prison system. And the Good Lives model basically looks at a bunch of different steps to basically say what makes your life rewarding and what makes your life good and fulfilling. And so with this model, they're trying to look at basically how you can find ways to find joy and hopefulness and really just be encouraged by the people around you with the need for academic mentors and for peers really popping up in the prison system. Having that good support structure has been really beneficial for a lot of these inmates and developing that sense of partnership and cohesion with peer mentors along with other teachers of similar like-minded situations, so they're able to connect and understand each other's points of view. Yeah, and then as we were looking at other states and countries, there's a lot of states that are doing a lot of different things and really trying to instigate this change. So like some of us have already mentioned, there's a lot of educational courses that are happening, specifically in the United Kingdom. Educational courses are available across the UK to inmates. In the US prison system, there's literacy classes offered and inmates have to take a total of 240 hours to get a GED degree. And then if you look at some of these specific states, I won't go into all of these, but basically there's a ton of different projects and community colleges and universities around the United States that are integrating these students. So for example, Oklahoma Tulsa Community College has awarded over 500 associate degrees and certificates since 2007 to incarcerated students. And they have a rate of 5%, which is a really good rate. And a lot of these, there's a common thread of having a really low recidivism rate. And so that's a really encouraging sign to see. And you can see that across kind of these different states, whether we're looking at California or some of the southern schools such as Oklahoma or Texas. It's a pretty common trend that educational programs can provide support to these inmates and really just help them to succeed further in life. And then when we look internationally again as well, I think one of the most interesting things that we found was in Israel. There's basically this university partnership where they have a mentoring program for male incarcerated students across 6 prisons. And so there's these criminology students who are in their senior years. Basically, they go visit these prisons once a week throughout the academic year. And they act as basically mentors to these incarcerated persons. And they're basically, their job is to just connect with them and kind of understand their point of view, as well as provide academic support and understanding of what they're learning. And so they found a lot of success with this as well. Being that it's an educational program, it's been beneficial to the inmates as well as to the criminology students to kind of understand their points of view and really see where they're coming from, and hopefully provide some insight and some hope to them during this time.
All right, and then we'll go into discussion and reflections. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about job placement. So going through this program and getting the authorization for the adult basic education authorization, we already told you what it allows people to do. And so far, Adams State University has proposed to hire individuals completing this program to teach inside the prisons while they complete their sentence. And so they'll be paid while they're still in there, but this will be a program that's kind of just starting out, since this program just started out. However, as we continue researching, there are actually jobs in Colorado that require the adult basic education authorization in order to be qualified for the job. And so these are jobs that people will be able to apply for once they do leave like the prison system with this authorization. So like the Learning Source, it's a place in Colorado that helps to get students to get their GED, and it's basically talking to adult students, and it requires this. So you can become a family literacy teacher. You can be a literacy tutor at public libraries across the states. And a lot of GED instructors require the ABEA. So having this authorization will allow you to have a job after leaving the system. Next slide.
Yeah, and then to take a more critical eye on some of these things that we've been discussing about this new program that Red Rocks Community College is rolling forth, and the needs of the prison system and of incarcerated students. So the program actually does a pretty good job of fulfilling a lot of needs that we found in Colorado's prison system. So CDOC's mission actually says to protect the citizens of Colorado by holding offenders accountable and engaging them in opportunities to make positive behavioral changes and become law-abiding, productive citizens. So this program addresses the second part of this mission statement directly. It also supports some of the policies and procedures that CDOC has set forth, including providing a comprehensive education program available to all eligible offenders. So supporting the missions and the practices of the prison system, but then also critically analyzing the power and access that is present in these scenarios with this program. So power mainly lies with two stakeholders, which is the government and the prisons, as they interact with each other and set rules and regulations. And then also with institutions of higher education who set materials, learning outcomes, etc., other things that are required for the programs to succeed. And then power does not lie with the students who are at the mercy of these more rigid systems. And also institutions of higher education may face logistical barriers and also barriers within the regulations and rules of governments and prisons. So there's a bit of power being transferred around, but luckily institutions of higher education have an opportunity here to connect some of that power back to incarcerated students and give them more autonomy and control over their own education. But within this program specifically, the program states that it aims to train qualified inmates with select college and post-secondary degrees to teach offenders critical skills required to achieve a GED. So this includes those inmates which already have a good education, who have some qualifications, so that the blind aren't leading the blind. But it does exclude some of those students who who may have a GED, but don't have a post-secondary degree. So finding opportunities to volunteer or be involved in some way might also help connect some of that power back to those who just might not have that post-secondary degree. And then in thinking about how students are heard in the classroom is also really important, and another element of access that should be intentionally considered, and how feedback is received and how participation rolls forward and who is allowed to participate and how, just again to make sure that the autonomy is being given back and that the power is being shared, just to critically analyze the program and its goals.
And then what we need to talk about next is how we are going to track the students that go through this program. And we have to focus on the system that the Department of Correction is already using. So during the intake process of inmates, they actually ask a ton of questions, including education. And in addition to that would be adding the progress that students have during their program to hopefully be able to continue tracking them in case they come back, or if they don't come back, like we can track our progress. But we really do need to have a staff member to create like a separate file to be able to ask for any follow-up surveys, because once they do leave, it's going to be hard to track where they go. And that goes with all students too, like after they graduate.
Alrighty, so, the purpose of the program was really to help rehabilitate our incarcerated people in Colorado. We want to provide opportunities for them to grow and just become productive citizens. One thing that we took out of this literature review was just how under-researched and underfunded this population of learners are. I feel like they can be a population that are forgotten about, unfortunately, but providing mentoring opportunities for education could really benefit our Coloradans at every level. So this program is going to be implemented soon. Our hope is that in the future, we'll be able to better assess and just determine how beneficial this program can actually be. And we hope to see it grow. So we were very excited to be able to help this program move along and really give it the data and the background that it needed. So that concludes our presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you all have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to us.